Hello, welcome to Paint a Beautiful Picture. It's so great to have you with me for this Saturday session. I would like to introduce you to a friend of mine. She is the mom of four very beautiful daughters, and her name is Amanda Wadlinger.
Hi.
Hey, welcome to Paint a Beautiful Picture,
Thank
Amanda.
you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, we're going to talk about general parenting questions and specific parenting questions, and hopefully, you'll learn something today. Go
I
ahead,
hope so.
Amanda.
All right. Are we going to just start right off then?
Go for it.
All right. Well, I'm going to start you off with a doozy. I was thinking about today, first off, where do you draw the line with lying? Where do you say, okay, right now they're being imaginative and they're telling you a story and it's something they want you to actually believe? Where do you draw the line between, okay, you are lying to me and this is a fun story, and not kill that imagination?
Right. That's an awesome question. Okay. Believe it or not, this even happens in adults, and it's called fabrication. And fabrication is a little bit different than lying. Okay. So, fabrication is, in fact, telling a story. Maybe even taking a story line or idea out of life and then developing it, embellishing it, adding great flourishes to it, and making a really amazing story. But it's not actually the truth of what truly happened or how things went on. Okay, so here's the thing. You establish with your child, principle building, that we tell the truth. You're honest with yourself and you're honest with others. So you're telling someone a story about what happened to you and how you felt and what went on, and you're being very truthful. Then you can literally teach a child to delineate and say, now I'm going to tell you a story. Because right then in their mind, they understand that there is a true representation of the facts and a story. Okay? And the rest of that is that every single one of us gets this. There is always a line of demarcation between telling the solid truth, just the facts, and a little more elaborate stories, some of which may be pretty imaginative or creative. Okay, so I always say this. You have this child and they start telling you all this stuff and they're just going wild and they're really a creative little person, so they have amazing things to tell you, and suddenly they're crossing the line. Now, if they're 3, they aren't even old enough yet to tell you that now I'm going to start fabricating. I'm going to start embellishing and oh, incidentally, females, I've got to say this to you, so you're welcome to laugh. My former husband used to say, you're always exaggerating. That's like a chick thing. And I said, dude, I have great information for you that you need to know. Eve, in the garden, before she sinned, was already exaggerating. So exaggeration isn't necessarily anything strange. No, and it really is part of human nature. Okay, so your child starts telling you all this, and they don't even know, they're not quite at the point where they can discriminate. Okay, I just blew this into a really big story out of proportion. By the time they're 5, however, that becomes a little different story. And you have to look at the underlying motive. Okay, so I've already shared with you before that when your child breaks something or gets really angry with someone, they need to be able to tell the truth to themselves and you. I was really angry about this. Yes, I yelled at my friend. Yes, I didn't act very nicely. Yes, I broke his toy. And I recognize all of that wasn't good behavior. I was angry and I let myself get out of control. Okay, so the same thing can happen. They can say to you, Mom, I'm going to tell you the truth about what happened, but then I'm going to tell you how I felt and how my impressions of it, and let them tell it to you. Okay, that's not a misrepresentation. In fact, it's probably a really accurate representation of their feelings and their emotional state and their perceptions of it. But when they're intentionally telling you something with a different spin to get themselves out of trouble, to get the other person into trouble, to cause that other person trouble, that's where you really have to look at it.
Yes.
So then you sometimes have to get to intention. And so that's where we talk to them about the necessity of speaking the truth in love. So I'm not doing this out of orneriness or outright meanness or an attempt to get you into trouble. So I'm not trying to manipulate the truth so you look bad, but I look pretty good. And all of us can do this, even as adults. And so helping them learn how to discriminate between telling me a wonderful story, which may or may not have all the truth in it or may go past the truth, as opposed to just telling me the facts. And that also becomes an urgent necessity on your part as a parent.
Yes.
To be really good at being honest. So when I say things like, you tell your child, I am so frustrated with you right now, but I'm not going to act terrible. I am telling you how I really feel about this, though. Then they start to see, when they've had that behavior modeled to them, I can express my emotional state. I can talk to you about what's really going on here, but then I don't have to act badly. I don't have to start blaming statements or any other nasty, unkind stuff coming out of my mouth. I can just own up to how I'm doing and leave it there.
Yes.
So when we can do that, they can start to learn how to do that.
Right.
And then they don't have to lie and cover up what they're really feeling or what they really did. They can just tell the truth to us.
Right.
So we have to establish an environment where it's safe to tell the truth. And then they will learn how to do it.
Yes.
But it may take time, even for them to discriminate what's fabrication and what's really the truth.
Right. And this is actually something that I struggled with a lot as a child, where I would tell friends something, whether it was to be more well-liked or whether it was for attention or, just to see what I could get away with. And it got to the point where I would do it without even thinking about it. Like, there was no reason whatsoever, and I would just invent a story. And so I have noticed the same behavior in my children, and it is okay, I've been there, and I know I had to choose that I no longer wanted to do that. I really believe that the Holy Spirit convicted me of it, and that I needed to stop. And so I had to really focus on it. And there would be times I would just start and be like, wait, just kidding. This is not true. This is just a fun thing. And then I could go on with my story. But I did have to make that disclaimer, basically. So in dealing with that, it is a thing where, when it's in jest, it is not in any way trying to get somebody in trouble, because I do think that is a very serious heart issue. But also when, they're just helping them. And so I know in the past I've said, okay, wait, is this all true, or is this, something made up? And so they will tell me at that point. But that leads me to, when they do lie, what is the best way to handle that? When they are outright doing I'm trying to get out of trouble and get sister into trouble, push the blame all on this other person. What is the best way, especially when you're not 100% sure that they are fully lying? How do you get to the bottom of that, and how do you deal with that?
Right. That's a really good question, too. Okay, so in my house, there were 3 things my kids would get disciplined for. I do mean corporal punishment, as in get a spanking. In this order. 1, if you outright disobeyed me. In other words, I said, you need to take out the trash. And they didn't. And 3 hours later, they're making all these excuses. Oh, no. They got it. Number 2, if they lied to me. Oh, I do not like getting lied to. If you outright lied to me, you got it. And number 3, hit or beat up your brother, because you weren't allowed to do that, because I grew up in a violent house and I couldn't hack it. So that's the only 3 things. Otherwise, we'll deal with everything. But I had this really odd policy, and my kids learned about the truth. If you did something wrong, regardless of how terrible it was, if instead of me hearing this elsewhere, you came and said, Mama, and took full ownership for what you did not get in trouble. The end. That's the premium I put on the truth at my house.
Yep.
Okay. So you have this child, and they're kind of prone to lie. And I have to tell you, I have 9 siblings. I have 2 of them that are chronic liars. So, yeah, I really don't like it. Oh, and one of my parents was. So I'm legitimate when I tell you that I hate to get lied to. And I really hate liars. Just tell me the truth. As I've said before, you can tell me that you hate my guts, as long as you do it respectfully, but don't lie to me. Okay, so you have this child, and especially when they're little, they're going to do this. They don't want to get into trouble, and they've got a whole bunch of other people to blame it on, so they blame it on someone else. You're right, it is a hard issue. A, they don't know how to take responsibility for their own behavior, which is normal in a kid, so don't let that one shock you. B, they're just as likely to tell you anything they think that you want to hear, or anything that's going to get them out of being into trouble and bearing that responsibility. So what I want you to know is you have to let them know how serious that is. Now, for some people, I really mean this. I have had friends in my lifetime who have been far more lenient. Like, Violet, you're so upset about this. Yes, I am, and I admit it. It hasn't changed. I'm an old lady now, and I'm still like this. I don't like people lying to me. Okay, so you're one of these people you prefer not to be lied to. How do you get your kid to tell the truth? Number one, tell the truth to them. I know that sounds pretty basic, but it's a fact. Tell the truth to them. Okay, so they say, Mom, I really want fill in the blank, this doll, and some dolls are $100. And you look at them, you say, I can't afford $100. I don't have it. I mean, I'll gladly go and help you find a doll that's $20. We can do that. I don't have $100. Okay. A lot of parents, they just go spend the $100 and then lie to their husband. Hello. And I know people who have done this. So I do know what I'm talking about. What are you teaching your kid? You do what you have to do to get what you want. Lie about it if necessary.
That's not a great one.
Whoa. Okay. So like I said, what kind of example are you showing to your children? And then, of course, you have to help them see, because they don't. Let me hit this one just for a second. Okay. People go, oh, everyone's basically good. Let me ask you a question. Did you have to teach your 2-year-old how to lie? Did you have to teach your 3-year-old how to lie? Not really. Kids are not born good. They have a sin nature. They're going to be prone to lie. They're going to be prone to cheat. They're going to be prone to hit. They are going to be prone to do it incorrectly, outright wrong sometimes. As a parent, in our job of teaching and training them, one of the things that we have to train them about is the value of the truth. And that means with me, if you told me what you did, you didn't get in trouble because I valued the truth. Mm-hmm. If you lied to me and you did wrong, may God be merciful, because I pretty much wasn't going to be. Mercy was not part of my vocabulary. When my kids were young, I was relentless, and they would tell you that too. Okay, so the question is this. When they did this, and you're trying to get to the bottom of the truth, how do you? One time my sons did something, one of them did something really bad. And I said to them, who did this? They both told me they didn't. I'm sorry. 3 people lived at our house. Me, my oldest son, and my youngest son. That's who we had. We didn't even have a dog. I mean, there was no question. Somebody did it. It wasn't me. That only left me 2 options. There were no gremlins or, little fairies running around in my house. And neither one of them ever did own up to it. After a couple hours, when I gave them plenty of time to think, and neither one of them would own up. And this was a very unusual occurrence because they were 9 and 10. No, they were 7 and 8. They were old enough that by then they both knew how to take responsibility and regularly did, and would even come to me and tell me stuff. I don't know what the deal was that day. So I told them in no uncertain terms, I said, one of you is going to confess, or both of you is going to get disciplined. Here's the deal. So whoever did this, you need to confess. They never did. They both got whooped. They did. They both took it too. Mm-hmm. I still don't know.
Oh, gosh.
Great Scott. We're talking 40 years later almost. I don't know who did that. They never did tell me.
Wow.
Like it was so big of a deal in whoever's mind that did it, they couldn't handle owning up. That was very unusual.
They did it together, possibly?
I'm not really sure, but they both got whooped because nobody told me the truth.
Yep.
My kids could tell you even now, you can do a lot of things to my mama, but don't you lie to her.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Don't they know that one? Even my grandkids know that one. So if you need them to tell the truth, you've got to tell the truth. You've got to keep instructing them in the importance of the truth. And literally sometimes I would do this in school with my K3s and my K4s. Mm-hmm. I would have a child intentionally, I would say to them, I want you to write on this desk. Don't write hard and make scratches, but just write on this desk. And then I would say, did you write on the desk? they felt set up.
Yeah.
They'd be like, well, what do you mean, Miss Newby? I'd say, did you write on the desk? Well, no. No. I said, wait a minute. Okay, so the other 10 or 13 kids in the room, did they write on the desk? Oh, yes. Yes, you did. I saw it. Oh, yeah. See, because they're not going to tell the truth. That is not their first instinct.
Right.
And I wanted them to see, okay, you're not in trouble. You literally followed my directions, even though we all know it's against the rules. Let me show you something. And I'd get the alcohol stuff down and wipe it all off, and they'd be, whoa, like magic in front of their eyes. And I'd say, okay, did you write on the desk? Well, no, there's nothing on the desk.
No way.
Yeah.
3 and 4s?
Yeah. And
oh
so
my goodness.
You've got to find ways to get your kids to tell the truth because it's not comfortable to tell on ourselves. It isn't, we don't feel good about admitting the bad stuff about who we are and what we've done. You have to make an environment where they can tell you the truth. They've got to know, okay, I can tell my mom the truth. She's not going to freak on me. I'm not going to get a whooping. Okay, so you create that environment where they can tell the truth. And you train them literally to tell the truth. So one of the ones that's really good with kids, and they don't always do well with it initially, is how are you feeling? When you know they're really angry, when you know they're really frustrated, when you know they're not having a good day, how are you feeling? I don't know. Oh, I think you do. I just think you're uncomfortable telling it to me, or you don't know what to do with it. But how are you feeling today? And it's all right. You can feel any way you need to feel. You can't act any way you want to act, but talk to me about this. So just in multiple avenues, make it possible for them to tell the truth and make it a safe situation for them.
I think that's really important too, because that leaves the door open to have those tough conversations later when they've made a big mistake and they need to be able to come to you with it and have you help them with this situation they have found themselves in. I think that's a really important one, that they are able to know that they can come and talk to you, and that you're not going to lose it. So I like that.
And I'll tell you one that I know it for a fact. My son was 17 years old, went to a party with a kid from church, of course. What do you know? And they played this crazy game where they're, doing shots. My son has never had a drop of alcohol in his life. He actually had severe alcohol poisoning, but that's another story. So he's just drinking and drinking and drinking. And then his friend said, I'll drive you home, because David said, I'm not getting in a car. I promised my mother a long time ago, and I had to make this promise when they were like 10, 11 years old. If I am drinking, I will not get behind the wheel of an automobile.
Yes.
He said, I cannot get in my car. So his friend who invited him said, I'll take you home. And David said, you're drunker than me. I'm not going to get in the car with you. And he did not. Well, unbelievable. He walked home. He passed out. Praise God, he passed out face forward, because he woke up like 4 hours later in a massive amount of his own vomit. Oof. This is how kids with alcohol poisoning die. They go to sleep on their back and they choke to death on their own vomit. Oh. So in case you have a kid and you think he's not there yet, you might warn him, if you're going to drink, call me, because I'll come and get you. But he didn't call me. I was at work anyway. I was working 7P. Anyways, the very next day, he told me, Mom, last night I got totally wasted. I don't even know what I was thinking. It wasn't good. I'm not proud of it. And then when he told me about everything that happened, I said, oh, you got far past wasted, dude. You had alcohol poisoning. This could have killed you. You should be thanking God for saving your life. But I don't know too many kids, the first time they go out and drink and really get wasted and really act stupid, who the very next day go talk to their parents.
Yep.
And that was the level of learning the truth, being able to say the truth, knowing I could handle the truth that happened in my life.
Yes.
So I'm not telling you something like it's a great idea. I'm telling you something as a solid reality. You teach your kids to tell the truth. You tell them the value of the truth. You help them to understand you're not going to freak on them when they tell you the truth. Yeah, they're going to be able to tell you the truth about really hard stuff.
Yes, exactly. So next one kind of ties back into having your child be able to understand the feelings that they're going through and express those feelings. What do you do when you have a child who, despite despite all your effort, seems to still have some self-confidence issues. They apologize for everything they do. They, never, they always feel like they've messed up, and they can't seem to overcome that. How do you give them the confidence?
First of all, every person is born with a certain personality. So I always say, you look at them at birth and you go, oh, yes, this one's going to give you a run for your money. I mean, you just, as a labor and delivery nurse, after nearly 8,000 babies in my face, oh yeah, you know what you're looking at some of the times. Well, then you look at these other babies and they're what the language would be equivocal. They can't decide if they're going to cry, and they can't decide if they're going to scream, and they don't know. They're very unsure already, like right out of the birth canal. They don't know what they think about the world, and they sure don't know what they think about themselves and everything going around them. And it gets worse. A lot of times you'll see manifestations of this even in an 18-month-old to a 2-year-old, where you have this real confident one, that walks around and tackles the world and does stuff, and they're kind of unafraid. Then you have this other one, and they're so, stand back is not the word. They're practically laying down backwards, and they don't feel good about themselves, and they'll say, oh, I didn't do that right, and oh, I can't do this. In fact, often you'll hear them say, by the time they're 7, 8, 9 years old, I can't do anything right. This comes out of their mouth. So that child can't get treated like every other child in your pack.
Right.
There were a ton of us. Mom and Dad treated us all the same. That wasn't really good, just so you know. It really
Doesn't
truly,
work.
it did not facilitate good, healthy relationships, or even us developing as healthy people, because you can't treat everyone just the same. Okay, so you take this child who's very insecure or doesn't have much self-confidence, or really struggles with how they feel about themselves. Forget about how they feel about every other thing.
Right.
But how they feel about themselves. What in the world are you going to do? You need to instill as much confidence into them as they can. So let's talk about this a minute. I'm going to talk about motivation, because it's pretty easy to get this one. Some kids are very internally motivated. You don't have to make them study. You don't have to make them practice the piano. Like, they're just internally motivated to go out and tackle it. Then there are kids who seem to have no internal motivation whatsoever, and I had one of those.
Yes.
And you have to externally motivate them, and it gets exhausting. Like, oh my word, come on, kid, don't you have anything in there of your own? But maybe they really truly don't. And so you have to keep externally motivating them, both with, well, I'll give you 3 things: with reward, with discipline, and with praise, which I realize is a different kind of reward, but that's something that really keeps building them up, building them up, building them up, which is a lot different than, okay, you accomplished this goal, we're going to go to McDonald's, which we never did because my kids weren't allowed to eat that stuff. But you understand, it's a different thing, this praise is, than reward. So you give them external if they don't have internal. It's kind of the same thing with confidence. If they don't have any self-confidence, then you've got to give them some. So you have to really look at this child and observe them, see what they're good at, see their very best qualities, really look at them as an individual, and in those places motivate or build up and strengthen those very things. So if they're not very good at something, don't keep asking them to do that task so that they just keep feeling lousy. If in fact they're pretty good at something, give them that very job and keep reminding them, man, you are doing so great at this. I'm so impressed by you. And then something they're not really good at, but they're willing to persevere, you say to them, I'm so impressed that you're willing to persevere. I'm extremely proud of you. I recognize this is difficult for you. This is a challenge for you. And yet you're still tackling it. You're still going for it. You're still putting energy into it. And you have improved. So a great way to help that child is keep track. If they're not old enough or they're not ready yet to journal, you should. So say, Monday, September 23rd, she did this, but it wasn't very good. But Tuesday, October 17th, she did this, and it was way better. And even keep track of details about how it went. And November 2nd, she did it. Like, she sailed through it. And you can go to her and say, do you know that 8 weeks ago you were really pretty bad at this? And look how far you've come.
Yes.
So you have really worked diligently at this. You have persevered. You have developed this. I'm so proud of you. And then they start to develop that sense of,
Yes.
oh, I can, in fact, do something.
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Yes.
And be ready, because when she's a teenager, it's going to multiply, because, oh, those hormones go and their
Yes.
emotions go wild.
Yes.
So when you're dealing with a child who, okay, so you haven't heard all this yet, but some of you guys have heard this for quite a while now, and that is the control of the emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
We are responsible for controlling our own emotional state.
Right.
In other words, I'm really angry, but I'm not going to yell and scream and cuss at you. I'm not going to hit you. I'm not going to grab you by the arm and shake you up. I am going to be in control of my own emotional state.
Right.
A child can do that. They can. They may not know how yet, especially if you haven't shown it. I'm not saying you personally, but you understand what I mean, dear soul. If you haven't shown good emotional control yet, don't be shocked when your child doesn't.
Right.
But when you start to, and you start to own up to your own emotional state, then they can.
Right.
So they need to know the emotions. There are not good emotions and bad emotions. That's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
There are just emotions. That's why I said love and hate are two sides of the same strongly emotional coin.
Yes.
That's why my kids, as enthusiastically as they told me they loved me and hugged me and kissed me and twirled me around the kitchen, they could look at me and go, Mom, I really hate your guts right now. And I could hang with that as long as it was respectful, because I knew it was the other side. Okay. So they need to be able to say, I'm really happy today. Hey, that's awesome. Maybe you're going to be a little louder. Maybe you're going to be a little boisterous. Maybe you're going to be a little crazy. I can hang with that. Okay. Happy is good. I'm a little angry today. We don't do as well at that.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. We need to tell them, okay, so what are you angry about? I have no idea, but I'm angry. I'm just ticked in general. Okay, I get that. You can't act terribly, but I get that you're ticked. Maybe you need to do physical exercise today. You need to vacuum the house. You need to clean up. You need to go straighten up your whole blooming room. I mean, do something with all of that emotional energy.
Yes.
I get it. So helping them recognize and acknowledge their emotional state without a bunch of value judgments put on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what do I do in this emotional state? Because I don't have to be a creep. And incidentally, just so you know this, some people, when they're in a really great mood, they can be the most dangerous of all. They'll go spend money. They'll go get high. They'll go get drunk. They'll go drive their car 100 miles an hour. They'll go get stupid. Don't tell me it doesn't happen. Don't ask me how I know, but I am telling you for a fact. Sometimes really good days are practically as dangerous as really bad ones.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where, as you gain maturity and you gain self-honesty and you start to take responsibility for your own emotional state, that's when, even on good days, like really good days, you're going to be a little more cautious and a little smarter, because those can be almost as dangerous as the bad ones.
Right, right.
And so let them talk about how they're really truly feeling, and recognize that you might feel differently in 5 minutes.
Right.
Wait till your hormonal faucet really turns up. Honey, yeah, you're going to feel 100 things in a day. And I'm okay about that. You can talk about all of that. We can handle all of that. There is nothing that we can't handle together.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a critical relationship and message for your child. You may not be able to handle this by yourself, because God knows I can't handle life all by myself either. But together,
Yes.
we can handle this. So your child develops a constancy in you as a consistent, I'm going to use this word, normal adult who's got a hold of life, and they can trust you, and they can come to you,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that no matter how crazy or out of control they are, it's going to be okay. My mom, my dad, they are going to stand here with me, and together we're going to be okay.
Yes. So what do you do with that child who has really big emotions, and they can go from the highest high to the bottom in 30 seconds, and we haven't hit teen years yet? How do you tackle them getting a hold of handling those emotions? What's something that's good to be able to teach them to get control of them before they bottom out and before they've lost it all? What is something we could do there?
All right, so one is own your own stuff, because you are responsible for yourself. That is a true fact. And so is your child. By the time they're 5, they are really responsible for what's going on with them. So that means they can get up in the morning on a really bad side of the bed and be cranky and, make the whole wide world miserable and every single person in the family miserable. And you say to them, I acknowledge your feelings. I see that this is a rough day. I mean, it's 8:30 and we just got done with breakfast. And oh my word, I can already tell that it's one of those days. And I'm not upset with you. And you can live out this whole bad day if you need to do it. But you know what? You are going to influence every other person in this family. And if your junky attitude keeps sitting at the dinner table or sitting at the, in the living room with this grump on, then you're going to ruin everyone's day. And you may not do that. So, as you've already heard, you go into your bedroom, you sit down, and you say, now listen, or pardon me, you go into their bedroom with them. You sit them down and you say, you may not have anything. You may not have a toy. You may not have anything electronic. You need to sit here and look at yourself and make a decision. So am I going to get down in the mud puddle and wallow in my junky mood all day? Because you can definitely do that, but not in my presence. I mean, you're going to be in here doing that alone. Or, that's the truth.
Yes,
like you can do that, honey,
absolutely.
but you're not going to put that all over me. Or you can get a hold of yourself.
Yes.
And you can deal with it. And you can go, yep, I'm having a really bad day. I don't feel good. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm whatever I'm feeling. But I'm not going to take this all out on my family.
Right.
I am going to get a hold of this. And when I do, I'll be back. And you say, so when you're ready, you come out and join the family. Come talk to me and let me know that you're ready. I mean, I've done this with my own kids so many times. And
right.
woo, did I do this with my stepdaughter. It's like, okay, so 10, 15, 20 minutes later, they come back out. It's like, yep, I'm not telling you I'm way over it, but I have a hold of it, and I'm not going to take it out on everyone else. And yes, let's get on with the day. Now, if they don't want to do that, okay, I got to tell you, there are days I don't have a great day. I just want to stay in my pajamas, read, eat vanilla ice cream. I don't want to deal with stuff, right?
Yes.
And thank you, Jesus. I'm a grown-up. I don't have little kids. I can actually do this stuff. So you don't occasionally, not too often because I have a life, but yeah, I'll just stay in my pajamas and get a good book and okay, great. This is how I feel and I don't want to talk to anyone. I turn off my phone and I just revel in having a lousy day. I can do that. But in general, that's not a very responsible way to do things, and they've got to learn how to get a hold of that stuff. Either your emotions are going to run your life, and we've all known people that are like that, and it is not a very pretty sight, or you're going to get a hold of your emotions. They can still be there. It's not like they disappear. And you're going to run your life, sometimes in spite of your emotions.
Right. Is there something that you can do to teach them, okay, I'm starting to escalate. I need to pay attention to how I'm feeling now and get myself back under control? Is there...
It isn't necessarily the escalation of the feeling,
right,
as much as it is the escalation of the behavior.
Right.
And what we all have to know, grown-ups, this matters too, is that the escalation of our actions and our words will in fact escalate the emotional state.
Right.
And so that's where we have to say, okay, I'm feeling really upset right now. Like, whoa. As I used to tell my kids, I could knock you into next Tuesday. Oh yeah, they knew what that one was like. If Mama says she's going to knock me into next Tuesday, it's a really bad time. Yeah, they knew that
I'm
one.
going to go tiptoe to my bedroom now.
Woo-hoo. No. They didn't have to. I mean, I'm going to tell them how I'm really feeling. I am so upset right now. But, that's a big word and an important one. But, I'm not going to run my mouth. I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm going to get a hold of myself here. Maybe I need to go to my room for 5 minutes. Sometimes I did, not always, but occasionally. They understood that. Don't do anything dumb in 5 minutes. I'll be back. But, whoa, I got to have a couple minutes. And then, okay, now listen. You see this? I'm having a hard time here, okay? I am not having a great time with this. but I'm not going to act like a jerk. You too. You can have a hard time. You can even tell me you're having a hard time, but you cannot act like a jerk. And suddenly they're like, oh, well, okay, that's how you do that.
Yes.
If they've never seen it, how do you think they're going to know how to do that? They don't
Right.
have a clue. Anyone knows how to ramble on and scream and talk about. Anyone can do that.
Yes.
I mean, a 4-year-old can do that. I've seen it.
A 2-year-old
And
is
build
really good at
themselves up. Really get themselves in a tizzy. Or a massive fit. They're so furious. Yeah, anyone can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really interesting proverb. It says that a man who can rule his own spirit is stronger than a man who can rule a city. There are thousands or tens of thousands of people in a city, but a man who can rule his own spirit, is stronger than a guy who can rule a city. It's a big deal to teach your kids how to rule their own life. And I want to tell you a secret. All of us know people who can't, whose lives are completely out of control in every possible area. If you've been listening to me for a month, and you have, because this is the first Saturday, you understand it is your responsibility to get control of your life and to take control of elements of your children's lives. That is your responsibility as an adult human being and as a parent, and you better do it. So once you get control of yourself, your child can learn how to take control of herself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is the most amazing gift, to give that gift of self-control to your child.
Yes, that is amazing. All right. So I think now I got to remember what my next question was.
Yeah, that one's kind of a big deal.
Yes.
Let me take a second to tell you a few things, because you've not really ever seen this before. I told you before, I'm a pretty creative person, right? I'm always doing things with my hands. You know that I paint, etc. Well, I also quilt, and part of what I do in quilting is hand applique. So this little quilt that you see back here, this squares on point piece, my video manager just asked me, how long did that take me? Well, it took me a day from start to finish, just so you know, so that's pretty easy. Now this piece here, I love to teach hand applique, and I've taught it around the globe in lots of languages and lots of places. This took me about almost a month. I realize you're going to freak out about that. The average person, it would probably take them 4 months, but it took me about a month. And so I love to play with color and design. I also crochet. So you'll see Sophia, she's this cute little kitty cat up here. And then Montgomery, our little guy, here on the table. I want you to know that even when my kids were little kids, I would crochet, I would cross stitch, I would paint. I didn't just act like I didn't have a life. And people would say to me, I don't know how in the world you can do that. It's like this. I told you, my kids were always at my feet. So when I was crocheting, they were in the same room with me. Whether they were playing trucks or Legos or whatever they were doing, they were not sent off to their room somewhere else. We were talking and interacting the entire time. Because of that, both of my sons actually can sew, and neither one of them can crochet, if you can imagine such a thing. But my one son is an award-winning quilter internationally. He's just astounding. My other son paints and draws. They're really creative because they always saw the joy and the fulfillment that brought to me, and it is something that they also do. I also wrote. Both of them write. Both of them are very well-published authors. And so don't think that because you have little kids you can't do stuff. You just have to work how to do it and when to do it. You may not be able to do it 6 or 7 hours a day. You might only be able to do it in 15-minute increments, but I promise you, you can do it.
Yes. All right. So my next question was, what do you do when your child is hanging out with somebody who you don't particularly like? What do you do with that?
Well, there are a few possibilities, and I'll give you a warning. When they're a little kid, somewhere between, we'll say, 5 and 10, they don't have a driver's license,
right,
and they don't have a car, so you can pretty much control that by don't take them where the kid is.
Right.
That's sort of easy. I mean, yes, if they're at school and they're going to see each other and play together on the playground, you don't really have control over that. So the warning is, don't tell your kid over and over, I really don't like your friend. I really wish you wouldn't hang out with that kid. If that kid has even an inkling of rebellion in them, you just pulled it out of them. Or you'll be like, Oh, yeah, my mom doesn't like my friends. I'm going to be with that kid every second I can. And believe me, some kids, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to cause you trouble. So be careful. That's my warning. But the better choice is to say, after you've seen them interact and certain things have happened, and you get into the car, or even when you're at home, because maybe every kid in the household doesn't need to hear it.
Right.
And you say, I noticed when you were with your friend, they said this to you. How did you feel about that? They might not even notice that that was how their friend talked, that their friend was rude, their friend was insulting, their friend was critical. But you go, did you notice when they said so-and-so? How did you feel about that? They might not be able to tell you immediately because they might not have even noticed their friend did that.
Right.
Give them a little while. Because then after they chew that over, they might go, yeah, man, that was really lousy. Like, if that's my friend, why were they talking to me like that? Why did they act like that? So instead of hitting it head on, go a little sideways with it and make sure that they're processing it.
Right.
Because then they're going to start to find out, that's not really the kind of person I want to be friends with.
Right.
That's a really good choice. Now, when they're a teenager, now you're in a whole nother story. Either they can call Lyft, because my one grandson doesn't have a license yet, but he can still go places, and they can certainly go when they have a car. So the last thing you want to do is this whole, I don't really like your friends. Oh, mom and daddy, that's going to be a problem. Don't be pulling that on your kids. Don't yank rebellion out of, I guarantee it's in there as a teenager. And so, again, teach them to discriminate. Who are you hanging out with and why are you doing that? So I know a young person who, before they were 21, incidentally, they started having drinking games with their friends, okay? And it really concerned this person's mom and dad for good reason. And so they kind of got on him, who are your friends and why are you doing this stuff? That didn't really work. But to look at a young person like that and say to them, what are you doing and why are you doing this? Are you drinking because you're underage and you think it's kind of cool and you're getting away with something? Because what you're really doing is fostering rebellion in your own spirit. Is that good for you? And do you know what alcohol does? Do you know what it does to your brain cells? Do you know what it does to your inhibitions? Do you understand what alcohol does? Do you like that feeling? Because if you like that feeling of being out of control, and this is a really big deal if you've been a parent who's taught your child a lot about self-control and you've already got this background with them, do you like this feeling of being out of control? Well, yeah, I kind of do. I mean, this is pretty cool. I can appreciate that. I really can. I just want you to do it in a safe environment. I don't prefer you breaking the law. I certainly don't want you to do it to excess. I want you to be wise about this. I always told my sons, I expect you to drink or get high. At some point in your life, even though you're a Christian young person, I'm expecting it. I'm not going to be in shock and freak out on you and, I raised you better than this. Like, you're not going to hear this junk out of me. I'm going to be like, okay, so why did you? Or how was it? Or what did you think? Yeah, we've been there a long time ago now. What is the kid doing? And get him to think. Why are you hanging out with this kid? What are you getting out of this? Well, I'm sick of all the rules. I have really disappointing news for you. The rest of your life, there are rules. If you don't believe me, when you have a vehicle, get in your car, go down the road on the wrong side at 80 miles an hour, see how long that lasts. Dude, your butt's going to be in jail. You're going to lose your car. They're going to impound the sucker, and they're going to take your driver's license away from you too. Oh, and they might even make you pay $1,000 fine. Hello? Yeah, there are rules. Don't think that you're going to suddenly get rid of the rules because you don't like them.
Right.
Deal, honey. So why is this person your friend? Why are you going to put up with someone who acts like this or treats you like this? Now, it's going to go through phases depending on their age.
Right.
It's a legitimate thing to ask them.
Yeah. Gets them to consider what it is they want in a friend and what their expectations of that friend is.
And that's a good point. Get them to compare their friends.
Yes.
This friend treats you this way. This friend treats you this way. Don't make the value judgment for them.
Right.
You really want to be friends with this guy and ditch this one. But get them to look at
to
that.
really look at it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Huh.
Very
Yeah,
good.
let them see it.
Now, going to what you just said, you sidetracked me. You said that you told your children that you expect them at one point to do one thing or another. Do you feel that then gave them permission to do said thing?
No, because they know my moral stance and they know everything I think. But what I was telling them was, I don't expect you to be perfect.
Right.
I don't expect you to go all the way from childhood to middle age and never mess up.
Right.
That's a joke. No way.
Right.
And if you do, or perhaps
When you do.
I'm still going to love you. We're going to work through it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have the same kind of open communication that we've always had with each other. But I don't want you to make a life habit out of this. And
Right.
I want you to talk to me about what it was really like. I mean, my son, who had such severe alcohol poisoning, he'll still go do karaoke a couple times a month and have a drink.
Yes.
And that is his own personal limit.
Right.
No one ever imposed this on him, of course. He's like, yeah, I never want to be so messed up.
Right.
Like, I love the feeling of a drink. I'm okay about that.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep.
I didn't tell him that. I didn't need to tell him. And so all I was saying to them by that, I didn't tell him I expect you will. I just said, I'll never be stunned if you come home and tell me that
Right.
you got high or you got
Okay.
drunk. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to freak out on you. And so when they did, they had the perfect liberty of coming home and talking to me.
Yes.
And I didn't freak out.
Right.
I was fine.
So that's great. Well, that brings me to the next question. I love how you've had this ongoing open conversation with your kids. They knew that they could come to you. How do you foster that relationship when, like myself, I have 4 children and I want that one-on-one time with them, but that's very difficult in the day-to-day. We have 5 million things that we have to get done each day. How do I carve out time for each one of the kids?
Okay. So the first issue there that I'm going to address is, how busy are we? Man, oh man. I hear this in counseling all the time. We are so busy. And I'm going to ask you a question. Who has your calendar? Wow, that's pretty revolutionary.
Yeah.
Because for most people, you're holding your own calendar.
Right.
If you're so busy that you don't have time to prepare a good meal, have a conversation with your mate, have some quiet time with your child, you better do something about that calendar right away. That's what I have to say about that. Okay, number 2. It's true, the more children we have, or I'll even use this language, the more people we have in our world.
Right.
Because I know some people who take care of their parents because they're older. That's more people in your world. Or some people even have a sibling or an aunt or an uncle. There are other people in the world who sometimes are with you. Some people have foster children. Some people have their kid's best friend who their mom and dad kicked out of the house. There are lots of scenarios. It's not just only your own kids sometimes. There are just lots of people to contend with. And how in the world do you do that? Number 1, admit to yourself that it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to develop and maintain a relationship with someone. That is a fact. If you think you're going to do this in 2 minutes a day, you're deluding yourself, because it isn't possible. I mean, you've got to have time, all right? Let's put it this way. When you were dating, you spent hours and hours and hours on the phone, texting, on FaceTime, and going on dates, because all you wanted to do was be with that person, talk to that person, hang with that person, spend time with that person. You were willing to invest that for that relationship. I'm right.
Yes, absolutely.
The very same thing is true of your children. Don't tell me that you have a great relationship, but you have no time, because I'm going to call you a liar point blank.
Yeah.
It can't be the case. Okay, so you have 4 children. Every single one of those children, a minimum of once a week, needs 1 or preferably 2 solid hours of your time. Whether that means you're at home participating in an activity together in a separate room from everyone else, whether that means you actually leave the house so you can go do it. However that happens, every single one of those people needs a couple hours of your life. Not everyone is just going to blab everything to you in 5 minutes or less.
Right.
Some people are really hard nuts to crack, and you've got to have enough time. And as I always say, and you've heard me say this before, go through the folderol. You've got to listen to all the Billy said this and Susie did this and this happened. And like, oh my word, they got to tell all this other junk to you, all the blather. And then finally, you're going to get to the heart. And if you aren't willing to go through all of this other stuff first, they are not going to just hand you their heart. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And you want the heart of your child knitted together with yours in relationship.
Absolutely.
And that takes time.
Yes, it does.
So realistically, you must put it into your own mind, mom, dad. The only way I'm going to have that significant relationship with my kids is to invest the time. I cannot give you another explanation or any other way to make it happen because it doesn't exist, just so you know. Mm-hmm. Don't give me this, we had quality time for 10 minutes the other day. I'm not buying. I just need you to know that. There's no way you're going to tell that to me and sell it. It takes time. Now here's the rest of the story in family dynamics. You need to do things as a group. Mm-hmm. This does not mean sit down and watch a mindless video for an hour and a half. That's right. Not doing anything. Okay, so you go roller skating.
Yes.
You play board games. You play Yahtzee. You do something. You make dinner together as a whole family. This person's cutting the cucumbers. This person's cutting the cheese. You're in the kitchen together. It might be crazy and chaotic and pretty nuts, but you're all together at the same time.
Yes.
And that investment of time together also brings your family together.
Yes.
So the only way, I don't know another way, to develop and have that kind of closeness that you want to have is you've got to spend the time.
Yes.
You just have to.
Yep. Now, that does not go to say that I can't just grab a child and go to the grocery store. Absolutely. And that counts. Absolutely. As you're doing the day. And one of the things I really like about doing something like that where I am grabbing a child is then the child is also learning a skill as we're doing something, whether I'm washing and they're rinsing and drying and putting away dishes or working on laundry together, then they're learning as well as bonding. And sometimes I find that those are even more special moments than when you sneak out and just go for a walk. You're doing something together.
Absolutely.
There's that
just life in general together.
Yeah. They're serving one another. That makes it a little more special.
And I talk a lot about finding out who your child is as an individual person. Okay, so if each one of your girls does the dishes with you one day a week, you're going to find out who really hates it.
Yes.
And who really loves it. And that's okay, because by the time they're teenagers and they need to have an assigned task, you don't give it to the person who hates it the worst and make their life miserable. You let the person who really doesn't mind doing the dishes or loves doing the dishes, that's their job. That's their assigned task. And since I know Amanda's girls already, I can say this to you. By the time a kid is 8, 9, 10, they need to have an assigned task.
Yes.
That's their job. Yep. They're more than capable of doing that.
Yes.
And so once you know what they like, that's really awesome.
My eldest loves laundry.
Yes, me too. Laundry. I really like to do the laundry. And so you spend that time with them and you work alongside of them and you really start to discover things about them and develop that relationship. I hate to tell you this, Amanda, but our hour is already gone, if you can imagine such a thing. This is what I would like to say to you. Every single one of you has questions and concerns as a parent. I know this beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'm going to do my best to have various parents come and talk to me. Sometimes I'll have an expert in certain areas come and share with you. But I really want to thank you for joining us for this Saturday session. I would like you to send me questions or concerns. You can do that at paintabeautifulpicture.com. On there is a place to send an email. If you are not yet signed up, I would like you to sign up on my website so that you can receive information about upcoming special broadcasts like today. If you are on YouTube, I would like you to like this video and sign up for future notifications if you're interested, and even share this if you know someone that you think this would be of value to. You will also find Paint a Beautiful Picture on Rumble. As well, you may hear this podcasts on Spreaker or Buzzsprout. We're going to give you a short end summary. Amanda asked me a question after we turned this off about someone that she knew whose parents were pretty critical of their friend choice. and they were trying to be friends to someone who is kind of an underdog or trying to give them a better influence. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me your experience, please.
So my friend basically felt like her parents didn't trust her in allowing her to make friends, and she didn't feel like she was able to discuss with them why she was friends with this person. It wasn't just she saw them and had a lot in common with them and wanted to be with them and do things with them, as much as it was to give this person a hand up. And so her parents were very critical in that.
And one of my sons had a similar experience. His friend was very wealthy. His family was really wealthy. We weren't that well off. And his parents were constantly asking him, "Why are you friends with this kid? Why are you friends with this kid?" And they stopped being friends. The parents really got in the way and interfered in that relationship. And then at their 10th reunion, they got back together and they found out they still really love each other and they had a lot in common and they had the potential to be awesomely great friends. So, as well as you might caution your child about certain kinds of friends and ask them, this child doesn't fit in with our family's values or our family's expected guidelines, and so why are you friends with them? If they're really friends with them out of compassion and they're trying to show kindness and they're trying to help this child or this young person, because that usually happens as a teenager, you can respect that. You can
Right.
literally let your child know that. But you also have to warn them. You have to be cautious about who your friends are and who you're spending a great deal of time with, because sometimes your friends will influence you and not necessarily influence you in a good way. Sometimes it's just as much that you're trying to influence them, but their influence is also happening with you. So I want you to know that in response to that question,
Yes.
which is a really good, I'm glad we had the discussion
Yes.
afterwards. Sometimes you are friends with a person who might not be an obvious choice and who may not act the greatest and even fit in with your family's concept of what a good friend should be. But if your child's doing that in order to do something kind and to help that other person have like a more stable environment or the opportunity to spend
Right.
time with parents who really care, then you that's why you need to have that discussion with your child.
Right.
Like, why are you friends with this person?
Yep.
And I respect that you're being kind, and I respect that you're trying to have good influence. I would like to ask you to be cautious,
Right.
that they don't have an undue amount of influence over you.
Right.
But I appreciate what you're trying to do there. So, in the response of what kinds of friends do you have, most of us have a spectrum of friends. Friends who are great and friends who are, people we know, but we wouldn't want to hang out with them for 3 months at a time. And so, who are your friends and why are they your friends? That may be just as important to ask yourself as an adult
Right.
as it is for you to have your children consider or your teenagers to consider. So, I hope that you have great friends.
Yes.
I really have some awesome
Yes.
friends. And I hope that those friends are building good things into your life and that you're contributing good things into theirs.
Yes.
Again, this is Violet Newby with Paint a Beautiful Picture. That's my lovely guest, Amanda Wadlinger. And I would like to thank you so much for being with us today. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.